All right, Jordan, we are good on eScribe and YouTube, so good to start right at 2:15.
Great, thanks, Amanda. Can you also promote our interviewee into the meeting, please?
Yes. All right, he should be coming in now.
Great, thanks. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to call the Land Use and Planning Committee to order. We have one agenda item on our agenda today, and that's an interview for our Historic Preservation Commission. I'm going to go through the standard routine items at the beginning of the meeting first. So just first of all, a reminder that we continue to meet virtually through the end of August. Instructions to join our live meeting can be found on the City of Missoula website, and that's ci.missoula.mt.us/webcasts. And there you'll find a link to the meeting and an opportunity to join the live meeting. Our first item of business is roll call. Amanda, can you call the roll, please?
Yes. Anderson? Absent. Becerra?
Present.
Carlino?
Present.
Contos? Absent. Hess?
Present.
Jones?
Present.
Jordan? I see her. Kirsten Jordan?
I wonder if she's having audio problems.
I'm thinking so. I will mark her as present since I do see her in video. Mike Nugent?
Come here.
Savage? Absent. Cheryl?
Present.
Basika?
Present.
And West?
Present.
All right, you have 9 present. You do have a quorum.
Okay, thanks. So we have minutes from July 13th. Are there changes to those minutes? Okay, without objection, those will be approved. And for the record, there are no members of the public for public comment on non-agenda items, unless our applicant wants to comment on something not on the agenda. We have one regular agenda item, and this is the appointment to the Historic Preservation Commission. And I'm really pleased that we have Ezra Williams here. This is for alternate 2 position on the HPC, and the seat in question has a term that begins immediately and ends on at the end of December 2023. Ezra, we just have, this is the Land Use and Planning Committee of the City Council, and this group will make a recommendation to the full council on this seat. So we just have a handful of questions for you and try to keep it informal and have a conversation. I'll just run through the questions myself so that we're not having to try to alternate, but if you're ready, we can go ahead and get started.
Yes.
Okay, great. So first, just please introduce yourself. What useful experience, knowledge, or perspective would you bring to the Historic Preservation Commission?
Okay. Hello and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ezra Williams. I'm a senior landscape architect at IMEG, which is formerly TLI in Missoula. My experience with preservation began when I started my career in college as an archaeologist in cultural resource management, documenting, mapping, recording the past in a variety of settings, from urban settings in Seattle, downtown, working on the World Trade Center, and Spokane to very rural areas, the Willamette National Forest, documenting logging operations in the turn of the century, and then also working for dam relicensing in Hell's Canyon, nearly walking both sides of the entire canyon. So as a landscape architect, I've worked collaborating with design teams member to focus on the goals and objectives of owners and developers of historically significant properties. One such property was the Great Northern and Inland Empire Railroad car facility in Spokane, which was an adaptive reuse project for McKinstry. So.
Okay, great, thanks. What's the purpose of historic preservation? How can the Historic Preservation Commission contribute to our city?
Okay. Well, I think it's in a basic sense, historic preservation is preserving the past for the future. Key figures, structures, places, aesthetics, significant events all lend themselves to being part of the discussion that is historic preservation. The Historic Preservation Commission has, in many ways, an additional set of eyes for the community. A trusted advisor that provides an opportunity for those selected to participate, to lend insight and perspective on the desires of today, with the duty to maintain the historical record for future generations.
Great, and the second part of that is how can the Historic Preservation Commission contribute to the city?
In countless ways, but they're charged with preserving the historical character and structures, basically maintaining the community, the past. We'll get into, I think, further ways in which they do that in some of the other questions.
Yeah, sounds great. How do you see the relationship between historic preservation and economic development?
Well, I would say there's a few ways to interpret that question. Nevertheless, I would say the relationship is a necessary one, and is often very similar to our interpersonal relationships. There are many times when you have diverse objectives and ideas. However, there's resolution and beauty in common ground and the desire to benefit more than just ourselves.
So this question was written in a little bit of a different time, and maybe I'll ask a follow-up too, and ask,
okay,
how do you see the relationship between historic preservation and housing? And I mean, not that there's necessarily a tension there, but can you describe that potential that relationship and potential conflict as you see it?
Okay, so you're anticipating a conflict.
Well, I mean, I guess I'm not necessarily saying that historic preservation, I'm not at all saying that historic preservation and providing housing are mutually exclusive, but there's definitely a relationship. And how do you, do you have any comments on that, I guess, or?
I mean, historic preservation serves a great place in this community and the world, you know. However, I think ultimately, we need to take care of our citizens, in addition to those key features that preserve the past. So, I mean, I think there's a balance, and I think every project will have to be resolved on its own merit.
Thanks. What's your understanding of the role of the National Register of Historic Places and the role that plays specifically at the local level? Is this adequate, and what role should it play?
Okay. Well, my understanding is that the National Register of Historic Places is essentially a caretaker for the most historic, more significant properties, places, features, elements. However, it's not the means with which the preservation for a community takes place. That happens at the local level. The state is only an intermediary, even at the SHPO level. Because they may manage some of the federal funds to the cities and the local community, but they don't necessarily dictate whether, what can be done to a property and ruled out and its actions. That is the charge of the historic preservation officer and the committee.
Okay, kind of along those lines then about the local implementation of that, do you have any recommendations about Missoula's historic preservation ordinance? Do you have any suggestions regarding the duties, responsibilities, or structure of the commission itself?
I thought about this question, and I'll have to say that I really can't honestly say what I would change without experiencing from maybe this perspective. There's always going to be things you wish that were saved, but perhaps different situations and circumstances arose in that discussion that led for the decision to happen. That did. I don't know if that makes much sense.
No, it does. It definitely does. The Historic Preservation Commission has two functions which can seem at odds with one another. On one hand, the commission promotes Missoula's historic resources and advocates for historic preservation. On the other hand, the commission must objectively review demolition and development permit requests. Can you describe this tension and how would you approach these objectives?
Well, I think there's always going to be some tension, but I don't think it necessarily has to be the stumbling block. I think there's always a solution. When I was thinking about the question, I actually started relating it, at least in my own mind, to being a parent. Sometimes you have to set, you have your own lofty goals for what you think that child should grow up to be and the things that they should do. Ultimately, they're their own individual. An historic property is its own entity. It must be evaluated on its own merits and allowed to follow the path that's best for it. And sometimes it's not necessarily the one you would choose, but perhaps working together, you're able to guide it so that it becomes a good, productive member of society.
Okay, thanks. A second part of that one, do you feel that you can be non-biased during a quasi-judicial process if there is a permit review?
I do, yes.
Okay, great. So the Historic Preservation Commission meets on the I think they actually meet on the first Wednesday of each month now at 6 p.m. And I think they're getting back into hybrid and in-person meetings, but also continuing to offer a Zoom option. And the commission has struggled with attendance in the past. So just kind of want to confirm that your schedule generally will generally accommodate this meeting time, and that you generally have time to review staff reports and other materials prior to meetings.
Yes, okay. On both counts.
Okay, great. And then a couple of logistics ones, I guess. The city offers board training twice a year. This training covers good governance, open meetings, public participation and right to know, ethics, conflict of interest, bylaws, minutes, and parliamentary procedures. And the council feels it's very important that city board members attend this training. Would you be willing to attend such a training?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. That's all of our prepared questions. Is there anything else that you would like to add about your interest in the Historic Preservation Commission, or any questions that you have for us?
No, I wouldn't have chosen to make this, to follow this course if I didn't think I was able to spend the time and actually dedicate the effort to what it takes. And if you have any additional questions for me, I don't mind answering those.
Okay, sounds good. I apologize. This is necessarily kind of formal, being addressed, being through the council and being in a virtual meeting, but we really appreciate you taking the time, and we have the one position vacant, and the committee will make a motion here at this meeting, and then if you're selected for the position, it'll be finalized by City Council on August 8th. So you won't hear from us for a little while, but really appreciate your interest and really enjoyed chatting with you. Anyone else have any follow-up questions? Okay, well, thank you, Ezra.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So we can move forward if anyone would like to make a motion on the appointment. And I have Mike Nugent first.
Happy to make the recommended motion.
Okay, great. Senator, did you have a comment or just the motion as well?
I was just about to make the motion, but I was really impressed with all of his answers, and I really liked his ability to balance the historic preservation versus the needs of the current citizens. So I'm really impressed by that, and so I'd be happy to support him.
Great. Yeah, I agree. I think that I think that as with all of our boards and commissions, it's great to have so much expertise and such a diversity of expertise. And it's great to have a landscape architect in this role. I think that brings a really unique position from the professional standpoint. So I'm happy to support this as well. I don't see any other hands up, and there's no members of the public here for public comment, so we can have a roll call vote.
Becerra,
Yes.
Carlino,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Nugent,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Vasika,
Yes.
West.
Yes.
All right, the motion passes unanimously.
Great. So that can go on our consent agenda. And we can be adjourned. Thanks, everyone.